Okay, so for today's deep dive, we are looking at a really rapid, and I have to say, pretty alarming escalation of tensions. We're talking about the United States and Venezuela.
Mhm.
And this isn't just, some low-level diplomatic dispute. This is a massive, very abrupt spike in the geopolitical temperature.
It is. It's the kind of event that really forces everyone to just stop and take a look at regional stability.
So what brought us here? What's the flashpoint? It's the report of an alleged attack.
Right.
And the critical detail here is that this incident is being actively and officially linked back to Venezuelan interests.
Yeah.
The U.S. response has been one of extreme gravity.
Absolutely. We know U.S. authorities are treating the situation seriously.
And crucially, that it is under active investigation.
And that phrase, active investigation, is just so loaded. For anyone following this, it's not just reporting a crime.
Yeah.
It's a diplomatic signal. It means resources, intelligence assets, legal teams, high-level diplomatic cables are all being pointed at this one problem. It elevates the whole thing.
From a rumor to a point of state friction.
Exactly. But here's the twist that makes this so volatile. It's the immediate and very forceful counter-response from Caracas.
Okay, so what do they say?
The Venezuelan government has not only denied direct responsibility, but they've also framed the entire set of accusations as overtly, and this is their word, politically motivated.
So you're walking into a crisis that's defined by two completely opposing narratives from the very first second.
From the very start.
It's a geopolitical chess match where the foundation of the game itself, what actually happened, is contested.
It is.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward for you listening. We're going to distill this dramatic escalation, we'll analyze the immediate reactions from both sides, and then we'll try to understand why international observers are so worried.
And we're going to define the three core areas that are now dominating those global strategy discussions.
Exactly. We're going to unpack the details that matter, not just the headlines.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's focus on that initial trigger, the alleged attack. When U.S. authorities say they're taking something seriously and launching an active investigation, what are they really signaling to the rest of the world?
They're signaling commitment. And a non-negotiable threshold has been crossed.
A line in the sand.
A line in the sand. In diplomatic terms, they're moving beyond just warnings. This is full threat assessment now.
And the resources being put into it.
Well, the resources being allocated tell us they believe they have credible, probably actionable intelligence linking this back to Venezuelan interests.
I see.
This seriousness immediately raises the stakes because it makes any kind of de-escalation conditional on what that investigation finds. It sort of poisons the well for easy talks.
That's a crucial insight. The investigation itself becomes a barrier to diplomatic progress. Okay, let's pivot to Caracas. You mentioned their denial wasn't just a flat no.
Right.
It was a denial of direct responsibility. Why is that specific word choice, direct, so important from a strategic standpoint?
Oh, it's the most fascinating bit of, let's call it, semantic maneuvering in this whole thing.
Okay.
A flat denial, we had nothing to do with it, period. That just shuts the door. It forces a direct information war.
Right. He said, she said.
Exactly. But denying direct responsibility, that's a way to keep plausible deniability in your back pocket.
How so?
It suggests that, well, maybe the attack occurred, but perhaps it was carried out by, say, rogue elements or non-state actors operating inside Venezuela.
Or entities not under the direct formal control of the presidency.
Precisely. It's a calculated risk.
Yep.
It lets them reject formal state culpability while maybe, just maybe, leaving a tiny sliver of room for a back-channel conversation about who in Venezuela might have been involved.
So they're trying to have it both ways?
They are. They're trying to keep potential diplomatic channels open, even while they're undermining the entire U.S. premise by calling the accusations politically motivated.
So they're saying even if this happened, the U.S. is only highlighting it for political reasons.
Yes. Not based on a genuine security concern. It's this combination, the plausible deniability and the reframing, that creates the pressure cooker we're now in.
And the moment that pressure started building, the world reacted. Let's shift our focus now from the bilateral tension, Washington versus Caracas, to the broader international arena. Our sources highlight this intense, almost immediate concern from international observers. What action are they taking, and what are they trying to avert here?
The primary action is loud and clear. They are urging restraint.
And this isn't just, the UN issuing some mild statement.
No, not at all. This is a coordinated recognition of how unstable the entire region is. When global bodies use a word like restraint, They're signaling they see a real risk of miscalculation.
A miscalculation by either side.
Yes, one that could lead to irreversible consequences.
That level of urgent warning must be tied to something massive. What's the context here? Why does a conflict between the U.S. and Venezuela frighten regional observers so much?
It all comes down to one phrase: regional destabilization. The warning is explicit.
Okay.
Further escalation could destabilize the region. This is the ultimate so what for you listening, because the crisis, it extends so far beyond just these two nations.
So what does that look like? What's the first domino to fall?
Think about the economic impact first. Venezuela sits on the world's largest proven oil reserves.
Right.
Any major conflict, even one that's just based on sanctions, would immediately send ripples through global energy markets. It would destabilize economies in all the neighboring countries.
And that's before you even get to the humanitarian side of
The
it.
humanitarian element is huge. Venezuela has already seen one of the largest displacement crises in modern history. We're talking millions of refugees and migrants.
And they've settled in places like Colombia, Peru, Ecuador.
Exactly. So any new military action or a severe economic collapse, it would cause an exponential increase in that displacement. It would completely overwhelm the social and economic infrastructure of South America.
So the international community isn't just worried about a fight. They're worried about a cascading failure across an entire continent that is, frankly, already economically fragile.
Precisely. They're managing the risk of collateral damage. This moves the crisis from a bilateral argument to a major regional security imperative.
So they're trying to insert themselves as a kind of circuit breaker.
That's a perfect way to put it. Hence the urgent call for restraint. They understand that every single action taken by Washington or Caracas now has enormous unintended consequences for everyone else.
That reframing helps a lot. So if the world is now trying to manage this, they aren't just sitting back.
No.
The sources identify three very concrete strategic choices, three pillars that are now dominating these global discussions.
Right, the what do we do now phase.
Exactly. These three pillars, diplomatic talks, economic sanctions, and military readiness, they give us a framework for understanding what might happen next.
A roadmap of sorts.
Let's start with the first pillar, diplomatic talks. We've already said the U.S. investigation is making genuine talks difficult. So why is dialogue still the key focus for everyone right now?
What dialogue is prioritized because it is the only way to prevent an accidental confrontation.
Okay, explain that.
In these high-tension standoffs, the biggest danger isn't always premeditated aggression. It's often just a mistaken reading of your opponent's intentions.
It's been miscalculation.
A miscalculation. Diplomatic talks, even if they're contentious, they function as a crucial de-escalation mechanism.
So the goal isn't a peace treaty right now.
No, not at all. The goal is operational communication. It's about setting rules of engagement, confirming where the red lines are, and giving both sides a face-saving way to step back from the brink.
And the pressure for these talks is coming from third parties.
Mostly. The international observers see it as the only non-escalationary off-ramp available once the military posturing begins. Dialogue keeps the option of a political solution on the table.
It's about minimizing risk, not maximizing cooperation. That makes sense. But if those talks fail, or if a stronger signal is needed, we move to the second pillar, economic sanctions. This tool is extremely prominent right now. What are the discussions focusing on? New sanctions. Enforcing old ones.
It's both, really, and the discussion is very weighted towards strategic application. Sanctions are the main non-military lever the U.S. and its allies have.
The primary tool in the toolbox.
It is. So the global conversation isn't just if sanctions should be used, but where the real leverage points are.
And for Venezuela, what are those points?
For Venezuela, the discussion almost always revolves around two main areas, the oil sector and sovereign debt.
Oil being the big one.
Targeting oil is the most potent rove because it hits the regime's main revenue stream immediately. But it also has the highest humanitarian risk and the highest risk of that regional spillover we talked about.
Because oil prices would fluctuate.
Exactly. So the strategic discussion right now is about targeted, smart sanctions measures that aim for maximum pain on key political figures, but hopefully minimum impact on the general population.
And is the debate about whether these sanctions are meant to fundamentally change their behavior, or are they just a signal?
That is the crux of the whole strategic debate. History shows us sanctions rarely cause an immediate fundamental change in a regime's behavior.
Right.
So the current discussion really treats sanctions as a necessary signal. They communicate that the U.S. is taking this attack seriously enough to impose real financial costs without jumping straight to military options.
So they're a delaying tactic, in a way, buying time for dialogue while still showing
Well,
resolve.
that's a great way to think about it. The downside, of course, which is being widely discussed, is whether these sanctions risk further destabilizing the region by hurting neighboring economies. It's a very delicate balancing act.
Pressure without collapse.
Precisely.
And that leads us directly to the third and frankly most concerning pillar, military readiness. The very fact that this is a key topic means we've moved beyond abstract diplomacy.
We have. We're now considering hard contingencies.
So what does military readiness actually mean in this context?
It signals that deterrence is now a core part of the strategy. Military readiness isn't necessarily about an immediate plan for an invasion.
Okay.
It's about contingency planning and force posturing. It's all designed to deter the other side from escalating any further.
What does that look like on the ground?
In these discussions, it means two things. First, the movement or visible readiness of specific U.S. and allied assets in the region, a naval presence, maybe air assets.
An observable show of force.
Yes, a very clear signal that says, you took an action, we deem aggressive, we are prepared for the next step if you take it.
And the second thing?
The second part is detailed planning for non-kinetic scenarios. Things like border defense, humanitarian intervention planning if there's an internal collapse, or securing critical infrastructure in the region.
So when global observers discuss this pillar, they are implicitly acknowledging the risk of a full-scale confrontation, even if they're actively trying to prevent one.
Absolutely. It's the worst-case scenario framework.
And its inclusion in the conversation really confirms that this is being treated as a major regional security threat.
It does. It's not just a diplomatic annoyance anymore. It forces a very hard calculation. If diplomacy fails, and if sanctions aren't enough to change behavior, then military preparedness becomes the only remaining option to defend perceived interests.
And to guarantee regional stability.
Or what's perceived as regional stability. So if you look at those three pillars together, diplomacy seeking a quiet exit, sanctions applying pressure and buying time, and military readiness setting the ultimate red line, you see the complete strategic spectrum.
The choice the international community is facing right now.
Exactly. The world is trying to figure out which strategy, dialogue, or confrontation is going to define this next critical chapter of U.S.-Venezuela relations.
That is a powerful framework. We started this deep dive by noting that sharp increase in tensions, right, driven by the alleged attack being investigated by the U.S.
Which was immediately met with that specific denial and the claim of political motivation from Venezuela.
And we established the profound global risk. That further escalation threatens to destabilize the whole region, which is why everyone is urging restraint.
And so the current situation, right now, is defined by this high-stakes dance between the pressure for dialogue and sanctions on one side.
And the stark reality of military readiness on the other.
Exactly. This moment is so precarious because all three of those options are on the table at the same time.
So, as you reflect on this critical situation, here's a final provocative thought for you to consider. We know the choice is framed as dialogue or confrontation, but those two things are not independent of each other.
Right.
Think about how the strategic discussion around economic sanctions, specifically which sectors get targeted, like oil versus finance, might ultimately influence the likelihood of increasing military readiness. Does targeted economic leverage ease the pressure toward confrontation, or does it actually act as a preliminary step, maybe preparing the ground for a greater commitment down the line? It's a key question about where the true leverage lies in this specific moment of escalation.